Hello, everyone. My name is Chua Lee. I am the Hmong language lecturer at the UW-Madison here. I'm working at the Department of Languages and Asian Languages and Cultures. Today, I want to welcome all of you to our IRIS International Book Club event today. And IRIS is the Institute for Regional and International Studies, comprises and provide the coordination administration support for Wisconsin 9 study area, which is including the National Resource Centers and the international study majors of the College of Letters and Science. IRIS is the pellet units of UW-Madison International Divisions. So we want to welcome all of you, and our book club today is sponsored by the Institute of Regional International Studies and the Center for Southeast Asian Studies. So welcome all of you. And our technical support today will be Carmen Pitts, and she will be doing all the behind the scene work. And then Felicia will be holding our Q&A today. So I wanted to welcome all of you, and I'm really happy that we are having our guest speaker today. His name is Ger Thao, which in Hmong is Ger Thao. So she's holding an MA in Education, Curriculum Instructions, a BA in Liberal Studies, and multiple subjects teaching credential from California State's University of Chico. She was named 2018 Great Lead Unified School District Teacher of the Year and Butte County Teachers of the Year nominee. She is currently pursuing a Ph.D. in Education, Curriculum Instructions Specialization at the University of Hawaiʻi at Mānoa. Thao has taught for 8 years as an elementary school teacher and as an ELA Intervention Specialist and ELD Coordinator, a speaker of both Hmong and English. She served as a consultant, former program coordinator for the Hmong Language and Culture Enrichment programs in Madison. Her passion revolves around multicultural and multilingual and multicultural children literatures and cultural curriculums by and for underrepresented marginalized groups, with a focus with literatures by Hmong authors and the teaching of the Hmong language and cultures. Thao authored the bilingual children books named The Hmong Journey, Hmoob Txoj Kev Taug in 2018, and Hmoob Txoj Kev Taug in 2020, the Hmong version, which shares her family stories and the historical and cultural context of the Hmong, and serve empowerment of the students to see themselves in stories and books, to be proud of their identity. So welcome, Ger Thao. I'm really happy to have you today.
Hi, everyone. So, Nyosho, as we say it in Hmong, or hello, or as I'm saying it, aloha from beautiful Oahu, Hawaii. And I wish you were here with me, or I was there with you in the true book club fashion, right? But because of COVID, we have to make do with what we have. So yeah, I just want to thank Carmen and Chua and our Iris for having me today, and all of you for spending your afternoon with me today. And just allowing me to have this space to share my story with you. I also just wanted to add in there that I also do have ties to Madison and Wisconsin, because I have my mom's side of the family is all in Milwaukee. So it's dear to my heart as well. Yeah, so we'll get started. Let me share my screen so I can share my presentation. Bear with me, and hopefully technology is on my side today. Come on. It worked earlier. We were just testing this. So yeah, so I'm just sharing. If you don't mind, you can get a piece of paper, a sticky note, or something, and just kind of draw a heart on it, kind of like mine. You don't have to, but I'm just kind of have us try something out. Whatever's in front of you, piece of paper, pen, just kind of draw a heart on it, and I'll explain what we're gonna do. Okay. So because we are so, and please excuse me for the noise here, because we're so far away yet connected at the same time, I just wanted us to try out this strategy of showing our love, our positive feedback, as I like to call a little aloha. So with the sticky note of the heart on it, whenever you agree with a thought, a comment from me or a fellow colleague, you can just hold it up. This is just kind of a strategy for like a substitute for the Zoom reaction. So like I said, so we can practice. So if you're excited to be here this evening, you can hold it up. Like I said, my feelings aren't hurt if you don't hold it up. I know it's been a long day for you. It's for me, I'm just starting my day, but for you, you've had a long day. So like I said, just a way of just showing your, feedback or you agree with something. So just modeling that. And if you don't mind, if you can also just type in the chat box your name, the subject, grade level you teach, and your favorite children's book. And because it is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander month, Heritage Month, if you have a book in that genre, feel free to type it in. Like I said, this is also good for my part because I can build up my own book reading list as well too, and for each other. So I'll give you about a minute to do that. I know, I think it's gonna be hard picking a favorite children's book. Joy, do you mind if there's any comments in the chat box? We can read them out. Particularly, like just kind of, I want just kind of get a sense of who's all here today.
So far, I haven't seen any comments.
And no worries, to share. Yeah, but if you think about it, feel free to share. Do we have someone speaking? Okay, so let's get started. Thank you for sharing. And like if you haven't shared it, feel free to just type it in the chat box at any time when you think of it too. So today's story, I'm going to start with a little bit of introduction, and then I'll give you a little bit of background on Hmong, and then I'll talk about my book, The Hmong Journey. And even though I kind of say resources and strategies at the end, but I'll actually kind of model resources and strategies and activities you can do throughout my presentation. And then we'll end with Q&A. Okay, so I just put this here, but I know, like I said, it's going to be a great session, but these are some community guidelines that we could all kind of just agree on today. And I also put it on there, like I said, as a sample for you. You can use this in your own classroom as well. So modeling empathy, knowing that we all come from different entry points, respecting one another's differences, that we all come from different backgrounds with our own experiences and perspectives, using language that's inclusive and culturally appropriate, and just we're all learning. Like I said, I'm also not an expert, I'm still learning as well. And just welcoming diverse opinions and being open to new ideas and to listen and to embrace growth and new knowledge. And most importantly, let's have fun. So I wanted to start with, in order to tell you my story, you must first know me. And this is actually influenced by Puanani Burgess, her Choosing My Name poem. So Puanani Burgess is a Hawaiian poet who reminds us that we all have more than one name. As she describes, names aren't simply metaphorical. They help us to navigate societal changes, and each, whether given or forged, is a part of our identity. So all these names listed on the screen have been given to me. And behind each name is a story of its own. These names, the name you address me by determines your relationship to me. So how close or distant you are. So Ger, my English social security name, my school name, my documented safe name. Maitse means the youngest daughter, given to me by my mother and grandma, the name that reminds me that I'm Hmong, my birth name. Jerry, given to me by my kindergarten teacher because my Ger was too complicated. Because we are taught young to show respect to our elders, especially our teachers, the nickname I didn't question, but I wish she would have taken the time to ask or learn. Golinda means the full moon, given to me by grandpa to appease my lonely spirit, my new name. Ta, one of the 18 clans in the Hmong community, my last, my family name. How many names do you have? What is your name story? And then I also wanted to also start with also in order to also truly know me, you must also know where I'm from and what I am of. So this is inspired by George L. Lyon's piece, Where I'm From. I am from the Ban Vinai refugee camps of Thailand and daughter to refugee parents, sister to 8 siblings and auntie to 20 total nieces and nephews. I'm from a struggling English learner to former elementary school teacher, first generation student to Ph.D. candidate. I am from ancestors who sacrificed so much, all for a chance to live, all to give their children a shot at life in the American dream. I am of the luscious green mountains of Laos, to the tight-knit refugee camps of Thailand, to the many generations under one roof. I am of Manjide, Ger Thao, Jean-Joa, Tianjay, Nakatsal. I am of Yokatsa Gimbo Shua, Techisa Naka Katokatitoa. I am of, though my tongue may twist in English, I still sing in the mother tongue of my ancestors. So this presentation today revolves around this whole concept of kedaning or talk story as we call it, we say it in Hmong. I grew up in a culture full of rich oral stories, so passed down through the generations. And so I'm constantly surrounded by stories. So grandparents would tell us bedtime stories of our origin, of how the 18 clans came to be. Fathers would pass on the cultural knowledge and practices to their sons around the campfire. And mothers would sit around stitching stories in story class to their daughters and preparing outfits for the Hmong New Year celebration. So storytelling is very close to my heart. And here is my story from immigrant to scholar. So the picture on the left is me, like I said, embarrassingly picking my nose, I think. And then on the right side is one of my most recent photos of here in Hawaii. So I was born in refugee camps in Thailand and immigrated to California when I was 5 years old. So growing up, I was never able to really connect with any of the characters in the children's book. And I just didn't feel like I had a voice because I was always just the quiet Asian girl in the back of the classroom. But then as an educator, I just saw the lack in the importance of Hmong children's literature. So the vision of my book was to really share and keep alive the rich cultures, traditions, and history of our people. And so this quote just kind of resonates with me because for me as a little girl, I always just dreamed of just being a teacher. I just thought I'm going to become a teacher, have my classroom, and I'm just going to be happy for the rest of my life. And so the quote says, sometimes the dreams that come true are the dreams you never really thought you had. Somehow my 2 published books became a reflection of my own personal journey from Laos, Thailand to America, and now to Hawaii. So these are the 2. So this is the bilingual version, and then this is the Hmong version that came out in 2020. So the book, The Hmong Journey, Hmoob Txoj Kev Taug, so this is a little description of the purpose of the book, but I'll kind of tell you kind of the origin behind it. So back in 2012, when I was starting my master's program, my professor, who was also my advisor at the time, she had asked me for some suggestion on Hmong literature for her multicultural literature course for young adults. So I couldn't find any that were appropriate for my young adults or children, particularly any that were written by Hmong authors. So as I reflected on my school career, I was actually really never able to connect to any of the characters or narratives in the textbook or literature. So I started just digging, but what actually inspired the idea for the book was my students. So it was really early in my career. And you know, that first week where the kids are getting to know each other and the kids are also getting to know their teachers. So one of my first graders was having a conversation with his friend during recess. And so his friend had asked him, who's your teacher? And he goes, Miss Tao. And his friend goes, who's Miss Tao? And he goes, oh, you know, that Mexican lady. And I'm just like, oh, wow, I have a lot of work to do. And so also my colleagues had also asked me, they're like, we've been working with you for the past several years. We don't even know, you know, we don't know you or who Hmong is. So that kind of sparked me to share my stories about the Hmong people and to write this story. So like I said, I wrote this story from the perspective of a grandma passing it on to her grandkids. And so it really is to provide that mirror for my Hmong students to see themselves reflected. And then for also my non-Hmong students to kind of learn about, to look into the window of another group of people and to understand who they are and where they come from. And so how did it all started? Like I said, I literally, because of my little teachable moment with my first graders, I'm thinking that I'm Mexican. So then I started searching, and then at that time I was also working on my master's. So I decided to use that opportunity to write a children's book and to design a curriculum on how to implement Hmong into the classroom. So I just started simple. I just started jotting down notes onto my iPad. I just thought about the stories that my grandparents would tell me and my parents would tell me. And then I reached out to my best friend who happens to be in computer graphics. And so she became my illustrator. And then at that time, I wrote it just in English, but then I decided to translate into Hmong as well. So it turned into a bilingual book. And how I met my publisher, I happened to come across him on Facebook, and I reached out. We communicated through email and phone calls. And before I know it, we were talking about contract and editing and illustrations and the final print. And then in 2018, the book was published right before I moved to Hawaii. And then, like I said, I also have ties to Madison, Wisconsin, because I am a program coordinator there of the Hmong Language and Culture Enrichment Program. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but it's an intensive 6-week program for Hmong students, and they come from different areas, but they come to Badger Rock Middle School, and we run a program where we're teaching them the culture, the language, and just trying to get them to really appreciate their sense of identity of who they are as Hmong, and to just really also embrace the love of the language. And so we have kids from the youngest is 6 to about 13. So yeah, like when I'm not teaching or doing my doctorate program, I usually am in Madison helping with the summer program. And I'm not going to play it, but if you wanted to learn more about the program, you can watch the little video that talks about the program in depth. But how this program came out was a bunch of parents came together because they were concerned about our Hmong students. So about 93% of our Hmong students were reading below grade level, and then 74% of our Hmong students were performing below grade level in math. So, and parents were also afraid that our students were also losing that sense of Hmong, their Hmong identity. And assimilating so much into American culture. So they came together and just had conversations. And then in 2013, summer 2013, the summer program was launched. I am also, this is my publishing company. This is the Hmong Educational Resources publisher. It's pretty new, and they pretty much, the mission is to help Hmong authors publish their work. As you know, the publishing process is very complicated, or finding just someone who's willing to take on your book to publish it's a challenge, and just understanding the process itself. So I have the link to our publisher here if you're interested in also navigating it a little bit later on. And we've done, so as part of the publishing company, like I also have done a lot of presentations with them, sharing my own experience in publishing my book as well too. So we actually have one coming up the end of this month on publishing Hmong children's books. So how's everyone doing? Doing good? Thank you. So this is just some visuals to share with you my journey of sharing sharing immigrant stories. So the first time, like I said, this book has just taken me on a journey that I've never even imagined. Like I said, as a little girl, I just thought I was just going to be a teacher and just teach my kids and just stick to that. And so having published this book has just taken me to different kind of book talks and book reading, conferences, author events, and now here with you today. So it's been such a wonderful journey. The first time actually I read it to my first graders because they thought I was Mexican. So I just wanted to share that the first time I read it to them, I didn't even tell them that I had written this book for them. It was story time. And so I had my little story corner and they came over and sat down and I read it to them. And their response was, Miss Thao, this story is about you and your family and where you came from, and as you can see as a classroom teacher, I'm like, yes, this is the moment I'm waiting for. um, so like I said, this is also how I connect to my students, and wherever I go, this is also how I connect to my audience because we all have a story to share. I also read my book at a family museum day, and I brought my niece and nephew along, and they heard the story, and they were like, "Auntie, this is Grandma and Grandpa's story. This is about Uncle and Auntie." And so, like I said, it's just very powerful of how this story just kind of helps these learners connect to me and their loved ones. I also have been able to share it at schools here in Hawaii, which there is not a Hmong population, but there is a good and population of immigrants too. And after I read it, these first graders, imagine first graders, went out into a recess. Instead of their usual playtime, they went out and did kind of a role play. And they asked each other questions like, imagine you being forced to move out of your country to go into another country. What would that be like? And so to me, like, it's so powerful that these first graders had that concept, that knowledge, because sometimes we think they're too young, right? They're too young, they don't understand, but they do. And so they were role playing and having these conversations about what would it be like to be kicked out of your country, to go and live in another country. And then parents also took it home and had conversations at home with their own child, because like I said, a lot of them have grandparents that were immigrants. So it's just been a very powerful journey for me to share this story with all various audience. And I even read it to grad students because I live here on campus with a lot of international graduate students, master's, PhD students. And at the end of the day, like I said, we may be grown-ups, but at the end of the day, I always say we're never too old for a good bedtime story or just a good story. So this has been my journey of sharing it. And then, like I said, it's also taken me to various conferences throughout. So being a doctorate student, you're presenting quite a lot, your research and your work. So I've also went to the NCTE conference in 2018 when conference was still in person. So I was able to fly out there and share about my book too. So my advisor and I co-presented. So our topic was a critical multicultural analysis in children's literature. And as you can see here, the publishing trend, and this was in 2013, so I'm sure the numbers have changed, but as you can see, 78% of the literature consisted of humans, 22 of animals, and here was kind of the part that blew me away, was 10% were of characters of color. So like I said, just this critical analysis of why is it that we write books where we need more books that's representative of our students, because we want them to provide that mirror so where students can see themselves, and that window, whereas literature as windows where students can experience the life of others. And like I said, hopefully the end that we want is that door, right? To write literatures as conduit that engages students in action towards social justice. And so that's kind of where my piece came in, right? That's where I was able to contribute to that piece of opening the door for author of colors or Hmong authors by publishing my book and sharing my family story, so that my students can kind of see into the window of my story. And then I also wrote a curriculum to accompany the book too, just so teachers knew how to use it in the classroom and how to also teach about Hmong. So this is my cultural curriculum that I created with my master's project to accompany my book. And I broke it down into 3 units. So I thought about, because there's so much to cover, but like I said, it's like I had this kind of timeline that I needed to complete. So I broke it into 3 units. The first unit kind of focuses on Hmong history. So, and then within that, there's 4 lessons. So kind of that are where we are, starting in Laos into Thailand into the United States, and then Hmong Americans today. Unit 2 is on the background of Hmong cultural traditions. So kind of breaking it down into families, language, agriculture, festivities, and customs. And then unit 3 focuses more on Hmong oral traditions. So storytelling, bandao story cloth, music and instruments. And then I kind of wrapped it up with a culminating project and a source list of Hmong literature and books. Out of these units, I kind of went in there and kind of picked a lesson each from each unit to share with you. So in unit 1 on Hmong history, I am sharing the lesson 2, refugee camps in Thailand. So kind of talking about, you get to teach your students about life of a refugee, right? So the learning objectives is that students will be able to orally contribute to conversations about life of the Hmong people in refugee camps in Thailand. So the groups will be able to present their findings of their assigned refugee camps through a group presentation using a media of their choice. So this lesson, and I'll kind of show you where it is, how you can access this lesson a little bit later. And then, so let me just give you kind of a little brief history about our background of who are the Hmong. So the Hmong are an ethnic minority group that originated from southern China in 3000 BC, and then it have migrated to various parts of the world. So northern Vietnam, Laos, Thailand, and the US. The homeland of the Hmong, which is a diverse ethnic group, has historically been the mountainous regions of southern China, northern Laos, northern Vietnam, and northwestern Vietnam. Some have lived in lowland areas, so engaging in wetland rice production. So here's just kind of a map of Southeast Asia for you. And this is just kind of a brief timeline of our history. I know it doesn't cover everything, but just kind of want to give you the major events of our history. So starting in 1790 to 1860 AD, Hmong migrating out of China to Laos, Vietnam, and Thailand. And then in the 1960s to 1970s, that's when the Vietnam War broke out, which the Hmong participated in this, as we know it as a secret war. And then 1975 was when the fall of Saigon came. So Hmong refugees started moving to Thailand. And then in the 1976 is when they started moving to various parts of the world. And then, yeah, in December, they were promised resettlement in other parts. And then, like I said, I think you'll see that the most populous 3 states in the US of where Hmong are living, like I said, they're all over the world, but it's Minnesota, California, and Wisconsin. Okay. And then in unit 2, I selected the lesson on language and clothing for you. And so you'll kind of get a comparison. In the Hmong language, there's 2 dialects. So there's the green and the white dialect. So students will be able to kind of speak some simple Hmong words and phrases. And students will be able to compare and contrast the white Hmong and the green or blue Hmong, depending on who you speak to. Okay, so on this slide, I just wanted to share the kind of a little bit about Hmong language for you. Hmong is a tonal language. So there's 8 tones in the Hmong language. And the tone kind of changes the meaning of the words. And so we kind of use that tonal markers to which is the last letter of each word. So these are the single vowels, and then these are the tone markers. Like I said, when you usually teach it, I'm not an expert in teaching Hmong language, so I tend to focus more on the cultural, but I always kind of teach my students also, this is the basic. And then the 2 simple greetings that usually people ask us to teach them is how do you say hello and goodbye. So hello is nyojong and goodbye is shinji dua. And here's a video, we're not going to play it, but this sweet girl, super smart also, will kind of go over how the tone marker, how to emphasize the tone markers too. So you can kind of play that video too to teach you the tone markers as well. Okay, I'm just going to play it, but I'm going to stop it. And then in Unit 3 on the Hmong oral traditions, I'm sharing the lesson on Bandao story class with you. And in this lesson, the objective is that students will be able to interpret Hmong history and culture through Dia story club. So I also refer to other Hmong authors and their work as well, and Bandao story clubs. So at the end of the lesson, students will be able to create a story club and share their own story. So I'm sharing this cartographic quilt with you because the wall is like a blank canvas waiting to be painted, or in this case, filled with decors to tell its unique story. So as you can see, my wall hangs Bandao story class. So Hmong story cloth tells of a 20th century migration. History is filled with stories of people forced to leave their homes, communities, regions, and countries. Our story cloth depicts the journey of Hmong refugees, natives to Southeast Asia in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. So Hmong refugees from Laos fled civil war, and thousands of Hmong sought asylum in the United States, mostly in California, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And as you can see on this page, on this slide, I share a lot of Hmong tapestry and embroidery with you. So Hmong story cloth plays a very important part in our everyday life. And at the very beginning, it was mainly just symbols. So as you can see this little cloth right here, it's very motifs and symbols. And up here, I know it's hard to see, but it kind of gives you kind of the different symbols and the meaning. But then and then a lot of time girls learn at a very young age to stitch. So moms will teach them to stitch. But after this time period, however, many Hmong embroidery started incorporating human figures and people. So though you'll see a lot of story cloths around, like this is the Mekong River. These two bigger ones are kind of like the whole history. Yeah, so like I said, you'll kind of see various stories. You'll be able to tell stories. So I use this in my classroom. So I actually bring in story cloths into the classroom, or if you don't have it, you can just show visuals, and I have students interpret the story. So because the images in the cloth kind of tells a story of its own. So. Okay, so like I said, because we are teachers and we always love borrowing ideas or getting new ideas. So these are just some simple instructional strategies that, because we're all navigating online learning, and it's hard to reach all of our learners, right? Or to assess their learning. So I just wanted to share some strategies that I've been borrowing or I've been using with my own, and like I said, borrowing from others, educators as well. So because we use Zoom a lot, there's always that option of Zoom breakout sessions, right? Because you want to be able to have the kids be in smaller groups. And then there's also, you can do quick writes. There's other apps like Padlet or Menti. Or like I said, there's something as simple as just sharing out, which I'm going to have us do in a little bit, if you guys don't mind. So here's an activity that I got from the Wolf Trap Early Learning. So throughout this presentation, like I said, I try to model strategies that you can take back to your classrooms or activities that you can incorporate. So here's a quick engage and ignite one, like a little icebreaker or just an activity. You can try it with any dish, but I feel like rice is such a universal dish. So I feel like it's something we can all kind of relate to. So how does your family or culture cook rice? So I want you to kind of take a few seconds to think about it. How does your family or culture cook rice? Because I feel like this is a quick activity that you can get to know your students and a little bit about their culture as well. So any brave soul willing to unmute and share how their family or culture cooks rice? And there's no wrong answer.
We pour it out of the minute rice box and stick it on the stove, and in a minute it's done.
Okay, thank you.
My family, my parents just boil the rice until it's done and they eat it like that. My husband is Hispanic, and so now I'm used to frying the rice and then cooking it in water.
Awesome, thank you. Anybody else?
I grew up on boiled rice on a kettle on a stove, but friends have taught us the wonders of a rice cooker.
Yes. Okay.
I received a rice cooker from, I
Oh.
received a rice cooker from a Vietnamese student for Christmas, and I haven't braved using it yet. I still boil the rice. The old-fashioned way for me.
Uh-huh.
I say we use a rice cooker as well.
And nothing wrong with the rice cooker.
My
Mary?
family, am I interrupting? I can't see. I'm on my phone, so I can't really see who's talking right now. But my family lived, I taught internationally in China for 4 years, and we had a woman who cooked rice for us in a rice cooker in Chinese, and I didn't know how to use it. But then when I came back to the States, I found one in English, and I've since only made rice in the rice cooker. So I feel really happy because I learned how to make my rice. Before that, I just boiled it the whatever from Wisconsin way. But now I feel like every time I eat rice, I'm thinking of Ajin, our IE in China. She showed me how to do that. And my children grew up knowing that from her as well. So that's my rice story.
Oh, thanks.
So I saw Larry Ashman is raising your hand. So go ahead, Larry.
Sorry, I just came in because I'm a librarian at the university and I had a meeting I needed to be a part of. So sorry, I just came in, but my wife is from Thailand. I've lived in Thailand. So I just wanted to know if anybody's tried sticky rice, because that's a completely different kind of rice, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a different process itself too.
Exactly. So,
Thank you.
Come to my house. I make them the best sticky rice.
Ooh.
okay, Sifu.
Hi.
Thank you.
Any other?
Any other anybody willing to share? Like I said, as you can imagine, the conversations you can have with this activity, right? Like just the rich conversations and just what the students are going to say. So I love it because it's quick and it's easy and yeah. Let's move on. So I just also have some articles to share with you guys. We're not going to obviously read it right now, and not that you don't have enough to read or on your plate already, but in your free time and for pleasure reading, there's this beautiful article on humble learning and just kind of learning about cultural competence, right? To remind us that we're always learning. And we're always asking questions, observing details, and experimenting with our actions, reflecting on our beliefs, traditions, and ways of being in order to respect others. So really just kind of reminding us that as educators, we're always learning, we're always reflecting, we're always growing. So it's such a beautiful article, especially during this time of, so much happening in the world today. And following this is an activity that you can do to kind of build a sense of learning community, like who are we, so you can use this to get to know your students. So basically you put this slide on and you have students kind of fill it out. So I'll kind of show you my example, right? So my name, and then where I'm from, who am I, where I'm from, and what do I hope to get out of this learning community? So for me, I'm hoping to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because for me, I've always never thought of myself as a storyteller. I'm just a teacher and I teach, but with my book, I've been able to share my story and tell stories. And then how is it that I thrive as a learner? I thrive when I'm encouraged to just try in a safe learning space. I'm a visual hands-on learner, so I love it when I can watch and learn and do things along with instructors or colleagues. And then here's just a picture of me. My favorite moment was when I was in Chiang Rai, Thailand, and just kind of staring out into the beautiful scenery. So it's very something simple and quick that you can do to really get to know your students. Or like I said, you can also do it with colleagues too. Here's another article that I wanted to share. It's called Empathy, A Mile in My Shoes, Closing the Empathy Deficit. So like I said, really looking at empathy and how is it that having the ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, to see the world through those who are different from us. So I think these are just two great reads to either share with your students or to just share with your colleagues as well. And then there's also a follow-up activity you can do as well. So who you are, take a picture of a pair of your footwear, and then also share a short story about yourself so that we can take a walk in your shoes. So it can be a story from when you were a kid, about a good day, a bad day, an aha moment. You get to decide. So I'll share my story with you so you can take a walk in my shoes. And this is my pair of shoes because it's cute, but it's comfortable. And in Hawaii, we do a lot of walking. So this is my story of a walk in my shoes. And I talk about my name, right? So as a little kindergartner, because I immigrated from Thailand when I was 5, so I had no sense of the English language. And so I was thrown into an ELD classroom right away. I was labeled right away as an English learner. So I just kind of struggle a lot with my identity. Am I Hmong, am I American, am I Hmong American, American Hmong? I also wasn't even sure of how to write my name. And so I would write, because my Hmong name is Mainsa. And so I would write Ger on everything. And then my teacher told me that that was too long and complicated. So she completely got rid of my, and she added an I to Ger, and so it became Jerry. And so I'm just, you know, you can think as an immigrant and English learner, I'm like, oh, I didn't know how to navigate that. So I just kind of went along with it. And like I said, because we are taught young that we respect our teachers, right? Whatever they say, we do, you know. And so now looking back, like I said, I wish that my teacher would just taken the time to ask me, right? To take a walk in my shoes and just learn that, you know, a name is a big part of our identity, and our parents give our name because there's a meaning behind it. For me, like my name is Mainsa because I am the youngest daughter, and Zhao means the youngest girl. If you think Zhao, it means the youngest son, right? So she just completely changed my name, which in a sense, like for me, like almost changed my identity. So that's the walk in my shoes, and to kind of learn about the value behind my name and my cultural background. And then here is another activity you could do. As you can know, our kids today are very social media savvy, and they that's where they get their news, their interactions. And so not that I'm going to have you have kids go create Facebook because some of them are too young, but this is just something more safer for you to do, but really kind of getting yourself to identify your class population and your student identities. So kind of ask yourself, and how well do you know each of your students in your classes? Do you know their backgrounds, their family dynamics, and their abilities, their learning styles and interests? So this is kind of reminds me of kind of the All About Me poster that a lot of teachers do, but kind of like I said, in a platform that like kids are familiar with. Like I said, some of them are very young, but they already know about Facebook, but this is just an alternative template for you to do with your kids to get to know them. And then, like I said, in my curriculum, I also have a culminating piece to bring it all together. So they've learned a lot about Hmong culture, Hmong history. So this is now their chance to bring something to the classroom as well. So this is like a family activity they can do. So this is kind of the letter they can take home to explain to their parents. And then they bring this back, a family custom that they do to come back to the classroom and share with you and their classmates as well. And then I also have a list of just, this is just a few of my own personal that I use regularly, but there I also have a list of Hmong books and that you can also refer to. So like I said, these 3 are kind of my favorites that I also incorporate in my curriculum. And these are some websites if you wanted to look for literature, books or resources. So Hmong Educational Resources is actually my publisher, and then Hmong ABC is another, it's a book, it's a bookstore in Minnesota. And then this last one is just a lot of research around relating to Hmong scholars. And then why I write. So as you can see, these are some of my cutest supporters of my book, nieces and nephews, or just you know, people that have shared photos with me. And the reason why I write and I share my story is that for my little ones is that so that may you never forget who you are and where you came from. And I share my story with you so that you can go out into the world and share yours, knowing that you are not alone. Let me see if, how am I doing on time? Okay. Am I okay on time, Chua? And
Yes, you are okay. If anyone have any question, you can just cut in right at this time.
Yeah. I could also just share also a poem that I wrote, like I said, another one of, but if we have questions, we can also just go with questions. But I did want to read a little snippet out of my book for you guys, because it is I think most of you have already read my book, but this is probably my favorite page, is this last page right here. My grandma Vang's heart to this day still longs for her home in the jungle of Laos. She still tells me her stories to this day. They remind her of home. I too, one day, will be able to pass these stories on to my own children. Uthia inutu uyomonu jadaning biado kuliminyor. So that's like my favorite page, and reminds me of my grandma telling me bedtime stories, or my mom telling these stories on to my nieces and nephews as well.
So we're studying our question right now. So if you have any questions, go ahead and pop out. You can write it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself, whichever that you are comfortable with.
And I will stop sharing so that we can see each other.
I've got a question. My name's Cindy, and I thank you so much for sharing. This is so great. I have not read your book. I'm so grateful to be here. I just kind of came in at the after school, and I can't even get my phone out the right way. So I'm sorry, I'm technologically a mess. But I teach at a bilingual Spanish and English school in Madison. And we have quite a I teach Spanish, and we have quite a few Hmong kids that are, I mean, I don't know what the number is, but as I said, I lived in China for 4 years, and I developed an awareness of Southeast Asian people. And so now I'm back in Madison, and my language is Spanish that I teach to English speakers, but I'm super aware of the Hmong population and how they get kind of sort of, because the culture is so deferential, so respectful, louder cultures can kind of overpower them, and they go by and people don't recognize them. And I feel so strongly about that. Like I'm gonna cry right now just because I'm emotional, but I feel like that voice is so important to us in our society, especially now with us. Just, it's so crazy. Everybody's fighting for their rights and stuff. And I feel like I want to, in my school, even though I teach Spanish, I really want to shine the spotlight on other types of kids from different backgrounds through teaching Spanish. So one of my ideas is maybe I'll teach Spanish, but instead of focusing on Spain and Latin America, maybe focus on your book in like a basic, kindergarten sort of way to teach kids different languages. So I don't know, I'm just blathering right now, but I'm going to try to do that. But then also, I was wondering, have you ever considered doing a YouTube video with you reading your story so we can hear the Hmong being spoken? Because I would love to share that. That's really important. And I feel like at my bilingual school, I can see, wow, we should be looking at languages like different, not just Spanish and English, but Hmong and the vowels and the language. It's just so rich and interesting and helpful for kids that are illiterate.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Like I said, feel free, you guys, throw in ideas too, because like I said, I'm not the expert too. So this is also why we all gatherings like this, because we all have ideas to contribute. Yeah, so I have been asked to kind of do like an audio reading because a lot of parents want to kind of be able to hear it, or the kids can hear it too, so that's in the works, because like I said, especially for parents who also kind of don't speak the language as much anymore too. They're like, we still want to be able to hear it. How do you pronounce the words? Because it's a bilingual for a reason, because like I said, the English so that my non-Hmong audience can read it too, but I also have Hmong so that my Hmong students can practice it as well too. So definitely very important to kind of have the audio version to hear. Like you mentioned, yeah, definitely. I know you teach Spanish, but there's so many creative ways to bring in other cultures into when you're also teaching in Spanish as well too. So yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I would say definitely bring in the books. Like I said, I think literature is such a powerful way to connect. So regardless of whether it's in a language or not, it's just a perfect way to bring it in and connect with it.
And then I'm sorry, I came in late, but is your slideshow available, or are you just because I'd love to look at your lessons again after the fact. I don't know if that's available to us or not.
Actually, let me share my screen right now again. Sorry. I have a folder. So, and Carmen's actually going to share this with you guys. She's going to give you a link, but I have a folder, the copy of my PowerPoint, but everything, all the resources also going to be available.
Ger, there's a question that I posted on your message to you, if you can answer that, from Lori.
Okay. Let's read it. Okay. Oh, okay. So Hmong culture, if you talk about clan system. Yeah. So I have actually, like I said, a whole lesson on the Hmong clan system. And like I said, I think when we just start, we just talk about the basic. There's an origin story, right? There's actually a great YouTube video that does kind of a dance interpretation, like just it's a performance of telling the origin of the 18 clans. And with my publishing company, there's actually a book that strictly talks, a children's book that talks about how the 18 clans came to be. So yeah, I'll definitely capture these if we can save the chat box, and I can definitely also share some more resources, just throw into the folder to share some of the areas that you guys want more about too. Okay. Yeah, actually I won't share my screen because it's probably going to take a long time to navigate with technology and everything, but the folder basically has the 3 sample lessons that I shared with you guys in the presentation. It has a folder on the poems, so the Where I'm From poem and the My Name Story poems. It has templates too, so you can do that with your students. And then I also have a folder of the articles that I shared with you, and also just a list of references. So it also has links where it takes you to where you can, if you're interested, you can purchase the book or you can access the book. And then, yeah, I also just have my slides in there too. So you can kind of go back on your own time and just access the slides. So there's links that's embedded in the slides as well too. And then Carmen actually is recording the session right now. So if you miss any part of the session, you'll be able to go back and rewatch the session.
Okay, so we have 1 more minute. Any other last questions for our guest speaker today?
I know there's some great questions. I'm going to go through the chat to see if we missed any.
Feel free to come out or to write your question on the chat.
Yeah, so my book, like I said, I know a lot of you guys asked about language. There's also a lot of resources around language as well too. Yes, we are a really oral culture, but with the we do use the RPA system. I'm sure Chua also has a lot to say about the language component as well too. But when I work with my summer program, we kind of start with the very basics with our kids, because a lot of our kids come to us with no sense of the language at all. They just speak strictly English. So when they come to us, we have to start at the very basic. But the one thing about the program is that as soon as they get on campus, we're strictly just speaking Hmong, right? And so I'm modeling that with my staff. My staff's modeling that with their kids. And then when parents come, we also tell the parents, like, please also speak out Hmong with your child as well too. And after the 6th week, it's amazing because they put on a culminating performance for their parents completely in Hmong. And the parents are just blown away. And the kids are, at the end, they are in tears because they have built this sense of family, because we eat together, we work together, we learn together. And so at the end of that 6 weeks, they're just, you know, it's just such an amazing transformation. So but yeah, so
okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say my contact info is there. So if you need any resource, if you have any questions, please just shoot emails my way, and I would be more than happy to share with you resources or, you know, what I know about it too. So.
Okay, so I just want to say this. So thank you for all of you participating today. I'm really happy, and I want to thank you, Mindset, for coming to share her refugee experience, her family experience, and every refugee kids have their own history and their own stories. So I really enjoy it. I haven't read your books, but I will read your book. Like I'm teaching at UW, so my children, I call my students, are adult students. So I haven't read your books, but I will I have grandkids too. So thank you so much. And thank you for everyone. And looking out for Iris, we have a lot of events go throughout the year. And in the fall, starting, we'll have a few events as well. So I'm looking forward to see a lot of you back to our book clubs. So thank you so much. I really enjoy it. And I wish you the best with all of your, if you're teaching at the university level, good luck with all your finals and good luck with all of your school, end of year school. Enjoy the weather